Welcome to Lesson 1 of Module 403. Module 403 is all about finishing the race. And this lesson we speak about going all the way. I start with a quote from Hebrews chapter 3 and verse 12. Quote, "Therefore beware, brethren, take care lest there be in any one of you a wicked, unbelieving heart, which refuses to cleave to, trust in, and rely on him, leading you to turn away and desert or stand aloof from the living God." End quote. Not all who start out with Christ continue all the way with him. Quite a few people, for whatever reason, turn away from and desert him along the journey. Paul speaks of one such person who actually walked in the company of some of the original apostles of Christ. His name is Demas. Quote, "Be diligent to come to me quickly, for Demas has forsaken me, having loved this present world, and has departed for Thessalonica." End quote. This is found in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 9 to 10. Faithlessness or unbelief, distraction, or the love of this world are quite often the reasons why people do not go all the way with Christ. Let's have a look at what I call the minority report. Only 2 out of 2 million people who left Egypt made it into Canaan. All the rest died between Egypt and Canaan. They perished on the way. Only Lot's family was saved of all the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. But not even his wife made it to Zoar. She turned into a pillar of salt after leaving Sodom, but before getting to Zoar, she perished on the way. Only 8 out of the whole world survived the flood during Noah's time. Jesus himself said only a few will be chosen. I quote, "For many are called, but few are chosen." End quote. This is found in Matthew 22 and verse 14. Again, when he spoke about the narrow versus the wide gate, he said only a few will find the narrow gate and the difficult way that leads to life. Quote, "Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it." End quote. Matthew chapter 7, 13 to 14. At the very beginning of the church in the book of Acts, before Jesus' followers were called Christians, they were known as the people of the way. See Acts chapter 9 and verse 2. This is very significant, especially in light of the fact that Jesus made it clear that he was the way. See John chapter 14 and verse 6. Peter, speaking of the false prophets and teachers who would be in the church today, spoke of how they knew the right way but turned from it. I quote, "For it would have been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness than having known it to turn from the holy commandment delivered to them." End quote. See 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 21. Stay on the course and stay connected. We need to go all the way. Only those who go all the way and endure to the very end will be saved. See Matthew chapter 10 and verse 22. Paul was assured of his reward because he knew that he had finished his race and went all the way without losing faith. He speaks of this in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 7 to 8. There is no such assurance for the deserter. To be saved, we must remain in Christ all the way without ever detaching ourselves. It's interesting what Jesus says in John chapter 15 and verse 6. I quote, "If you don't remain in me, you will be like a branch that is thrown out and dries up. Those branches are gathered up, thrown into a fire, and burned." End quote. I read from the CEB translation. Your further reading. We must have the attitude Ruth had and would not allow herself to be separated from Naomi. See the book of Ruth, chapter 1. Or like Elisha, who again would not allow separation between himself and Elijah. See 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 to 8. Or like the disciples who would not leave Jesus when almost everybody was abandoning him because they misunderstood a statement he made. See John chapter 6, verses 66 to 71. See you in the next lesson. Goodbye.